staying on top of developments in job search can be really challenging. It's every day there's something new, or it seems like, and you're like, this is a really steep hill to climb. But don't hesitate to ask for help. There's a lot of help out there. LinkedIn is a good place to ask for help, actually. You can ask for help. I see folks posting that are pretty much doing things right, and they're somewhere in my broader LinkedIn circle, and I see somebody make a comment, because they've asked for help. They say, I put out like 25 applications over the last month. They all seem like really good fits. I don't seem to be getting any traction. Can somebody help me out here? And, people will be very generous. I've seen people say, hey, you need to talk to so-and-so, or, well, I looked at your resume and, I'm not quite sure that you've hit your target like you think you're hitting your target. And they'll give all. So LinkedIn is a great place.
We are looking forward our way. We're in Studio C in the 511 Studios in the Brewery District, just south of downtown Columbus, Ohio. This is Brett. Many individuals are re-entering the job market or looking for new opportunities. Although there are many more jobs available than applicants, the hiring process is not easier. Today, we're going to explore one very important step in a job search process, utilizing LinkedIn, and review new features on the social media platform.
Hey, Brett.
Hey.
Good to see you today.
Yes.
Seems like we've not been here.
It's been a minute.
A minute. So,
yep.
Well, and it's exciting today. Our friend and local expert joining us is Sharon Hammersley. Sharon has been our guide to job seeking for many years and always willing to provide us with current information needed by so many job applicants. Some of you in our audience may know Sharon as the LinkedIn coach or the resume coach, and Sharon generously provides job searching information to Central Ohioans in many formats, including working with local nonprofits and libraries through various workshops and training programs. So let's give a great welcome to Sharon, who's in our studio today. Sharon, thanks so much for joining us.
I'm really happy to be here and to be able to give a little bit of advice about LinkedIn today. So
yeah,
I think it's kind of important. And I always enjoy talking to my friends Carol and Brett in any case.
The audience is in the same spot that Brett and I are in, and that is you can't keep up with social media and the changes on the platforms. So that's why we are so glad that you're willing to keep up with LinkedIn and let us know all of the tricks of the trade.
All right. Well, for convenience sake, we put together a playlist of, now this is not Sharon's first appearance on the podcast. So we put a collection, playlist together of Sharon's episodes about LinkedIn and job searching and such. So we'll put a link to that as well if you want to kind of go back in time to listen to other episodes as well. But as you're going to hear her background a little bit in those episodes, but we also recognize this may be your first episode you've heard Sharon talk. So let's talk about your background and the services you've been providing for job seekers over the many years, Sharon.
Great. Yeah. So I actually know Carol from way back.
Yes, in one of our previous Encore careers. Yes.
Yep. At Ohio State, I was an academic advisor with a focus on career development. And for the past 10 plus, it's almost 12 years now, I've been working with job seekers in transition, looking to make a change or to reenter the workforce. And my goal when I work with my clients is to provide each candidate with the knowledge, skills, and tools to conduct a 21st century job search. That's what I call it, and find the job that's their best fit. And as LinkedIn has become a key piece of job search, I also teach candidates how to leverage LinkedIn to enhance their visibility and connect with recruiters and jobs. And also as an extension of my LinkedIn coaching, I have been teaching professionals and small business owners strategies to find and attract their ideal clients and customers using LinkedIn.
Right, great. So, Sharon, we all know that change is the only constant in employment searching, and it definitely affects anyone who is looking for a job. Things just pop here and there and someplace else, and folks really need to understand the process to be successful. So what are you seeing that job seekers need to be aware of in terms of finding and applying for jobs, and specifically how LinkedIn impacts that process?
Yes, well, LinkedIn is always adding new features, and sometimes they yank some, much to the frustration of folks. But good to keep in mind that LinkedIn is a dynamic platform, just like all social media platforms, so changes can be expected. With that in mind, there are several recent upgrades that I'd like to point people towards today on LinkedIn, especially people in job search, because they can be really helpful tools, and you may not be aware of them. So there is now available to everybody. It's called Open to Work. And if you're on LinkedIn, you may have seen people with a little green half circle around their headshot on LinkedIn. It says Open to Work, and you're going, well, what's that? Open to Work can be in two versions. One version, and you get to choose which one you want. One version is you just tell the entire world, anyone who sees your LinkedIn profile, hey, I'm looking for a job, or I'm thinking about looking for a job. That's one version. And I recommend that to anybody who's actively in job search right now. The other version is Open to Work, and only recruiters can see that. And that's very handy if you're thinking about looking for a job, but clearly, you're currently employed. You really don't want your employer seeing that on your profile. So
Right.
I think that can be very helpful. And it does point recruiters toward you. And later on in this segment, I'm going to discuss a few other avenues to get recruiters to actually see, to be pointed more towards your profile.
That's really important, Sharon, that people realize you click on Open to Work and your employer sees it, it could really be a problem.
Yes.
So be very, very careful. It's a great tool, but understand how to use that tool.
Yes, exactly. So there's also now a skills match. There's always been a skills section on LinkedIn where you kind of said, well, I have this skill and that skill and the other skill, and it's been a separate section, and it's kind of been buried at the bottom. Well, fortunately, LinkedIn has brought that right up to the top, because you can add skills in your About section where you write, what it is, who you are, what you're looking for, and you can actually add skills to that. And you can also add up to 5 skills for each of the positions that you list. So that makes the skills section much more visible and much more powerful, because if you think of it, if a recruiter is looking for somebody with a skill set and they type that into LinkedIn and you have that skill set, that's going to pop you probably higher in their search results, the results that they're returning.
So does that mean that, say, a job you had 5 years ago included a particular set of skills, but the job you have now have a different set of skills? So now all of those skills are available and sort of equal to a recruiter. Good.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah, and that can be really helpful if you're seeking to change direction a bit. You want to go back to what you were doing before. That can also be really helpful. So, and also when you look at a job posting on LinkedIn and you have your skills listed, LinkedIn will sometimes helpfully, and I think sometimes not, say, okay, so you match 7 of the 10 skills that the job poster has put out for this. And that's actually a pretty good match and an indication, yes, this is probably a job you should actually be applying for. So that skills section has really been boosted recently, and I think that's really helpful to job seekers. Another area that's actually gotten a little more useful, it's always been there. If you search for jobs, it will ask you, do you want to put this on a job alert thing? You say, I'm looking for this, this, and this. It's always been there, but in the past, I haven't found that to be that helpful. But now it seems to be much more helpful. and LinkedIn is actually pushing jobs toward you that may be good matches and you want to consider applying for. So that's another really helpful.
Can I ask you a question
Sure.
about job alerts? And maybe I'm jumping the gun here. When you have to tell it you want those job alerts,
Yes.
are there things that you can filter? So say, for instance, some of our audience are 50 and over and they're really only looking for part-time.
Sure.
Can you put, okay. So that would be
Part-time.
good. Yeah, because right now I get all kinds of jobs, but they're usually full-time at pretty high levels in an organization, which I wouldn't be interested in doing anymore.
Yeah.
So I can go back and filter those out.
Yes.
Very cool.
Yeah. Part-time, remote,
Right.
all of those, certain types of things you could probably even specify. Mostly interested in nonprofits if you really wanted that, or for-profits, certain industries. So yeah, it's a more robust tool than it used to be.
Great.
So
Great.
that's really
Okay.
good.
Thank you.
Now, another new feature that's just been rolled out, I think, over probably the past year or so, is signaling interest that you want to work for a particular company. Now, not all. First of all, I hope people understand that LinkedIn has a lot of company pages. That is, it's not just individual members. Companies have their own company page, and pretty much all of the heavy hitters have a company page. And most of them, I think, have taken to this feature now. So you as a job seeker need to filter your search a bit by, okay, so what companies am I really interested in working for? Look to see if they have a company page on LinkedIn. Most of them will. And then there's a new feature, which is kind of hard to describe here when we're just talking about it, that says interest, express my interest in this company. So you can actually say, hey, I really want to work for this company. And I'm not sure exactly what that does for the recruiters, but, as they're filtering folks and they see people say, hey, yes, I'm raising my hand, I want to work for this company, I would hope that would engender some more interest on their part, because they're obviously looking for people that are a good match for their company. And if you're telling them, hey, I've already researched your company, I think I'm a good match, just sort of generally culture, type of work, all of that, I would say that's an additional incentive for that recruiter to actually reach out to you then, if they have a job that's.
You could always say you were interested in following the company.
Yeah.
But this goes a lot deeper. That's wonderful.
Yeah.
It's kind of like in the old days, you go to a business and drop off your resume because you were interested in working for that
Right.
company.
Yeah. This is a virtual version of dropping off your resume.
Right.
Very
Yeah.
good.
So, I mean, I
Very
guess you
good.
could put it in that mindset.
Well,
Yeah.
and it really sort of is electronically adapting your job search, so you're not just sending out resumes for jobs that are posted,
Yeah.
but you're letting the company know they are a target of your search.
Yes,
Very
exactly.
cool.
Well, you can usurp that. Not all open positions are open to the public.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly. Knowledge, yeah.
That a lot of it is that you got to know somebody,
Yeah,
and triggering that could
Yeah.
open up the doorway. Going, they never even advertised that they had a job opening, but
Yeah.
they showed an interest
Yeah.
in that company. It's like, well, let's talk to them.
yeah. Let's talk and let's see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very cool.
So
Yeah,
that's a neat new feature.
Yeah.
Now, another item that is fairly new is when you apply for a job through LinkedIn and you upload your resume and it goes to a particular recruiter, but now there's a feature that says, and this is kind of hard to describe, but you'll see a little pop-up box that says, share this resume with all recruiters. And you can say yes to that, because then it will get blasted out to a lot of other recruiters as well. Now, you might want to exercise a bit of caution here if you have a fairly narrow job search target, because what you might get is then a whole bunch of people in your inbox going, hey, I saw your resume, can we talk? And you're looking at it going, well, I don't know who you are and what your company is. So I would exercise a bit of caution, but especially in the early stages of your job search, I think that may actually be a valuable extra little step that you can take to get your name and your resume in front of a lot of folks. And then you can always weed down,
This is a little scary too, because what you're doing is basically networking, but as opposed to networking with people, you're networking with bots on somebody's website.
Yeah.
So you have to be careful, because you could get, just slammed with a lot of messages.
Yeah, right.
But it's a great way to get to the recruiter.
Yeah.
And for years we've all said it's really difficult to actually get to a recruiter. So
yeah.
This is good.
Exactly. Yeah. So, and then finally, and I find this really neat. When you apply to a particular job that you've been recommended for through, your job alert, it says, this is a job we recommend you apply for. If you apply for that job and it's really a good fit and you're pretty excited and you really want to apply for that job, you're really interested in talking to them, you can mark that job, that application as this is a top choice for me in terms of applications. So there's that new feature. It's actually called Top Choice. And once you mark that as a top choice, my understanding is that you then go pretty high up in the recruiter's queue of people who have applied for that job, because obviously they're going to want to talk to you if this is something that you're really interested in. Mm-hmm. So I don't know exactly how that's working, because I haven't had anybody actually do it yet. And obviously I can't do it because, I get somebody really mad probably.
Yeah. Let's not make the employers too a little crazy about it.
Yeah. Right. So you can do up to 3 top choices a month. That's the limit on it. So you can't be going out there randomly going top choice, top choice, top choice. Right. So this is part, again, and this is something I emphasize repeatedly with every client and job seeker I meet. It's really, really important for you to have an actual job search strategy, have a list of companies you want to work for, have a good list of the type of jobs you want and why you're qualified for them. So this is part of a really targeted and strategic job search strategy. I still see so many people out there just kind of throwing resumes, at the internet like Jell-O. Hopefully it sticks to the wall, and that's just really frustrating, because it's so likely that you're not going to get any sort of response at all. Whereas if you use any or all of these tools, they can be a real advantage to you in terms of the job search, because you know what you're looking for, you know where you're looking for it. Now all you really need to do is get connected with those folks in the companies that are going to do the hiring, or at least, do the screening, the recruiters. And so that's why it's very important before you jump in and use any of these tools, even the Open to Work tool, I would say, that very basic one. You really do want to have a job search strategy in place. So,
it used to be way back in the olden days before LinkedIn, clients would do that scattershot approach and just send out resumes, and it was sort of a badge of courage that they could send out 100 resumes a month. Well, it doesn't get you anywhere. And it's not easier than trying to come up with a strategy. So LinkedIn makes both ways easier, the scattergun approach or a strategically based job search.
Yes.
So make it easier on yourself, but realize your level of success is going to be a lot better with a thoughtful process as opposed to just sending it to send.
Yeah, right.
Well, it sounds as though the 6 things that you mentioned here are actually giving the power back to the normal, regular LinkedIn user versus the recruiter.
Yeah.
I don't think it's taking away any powers from recruiters.
Oh,
but
no.
It certainly alleviates from what I remember Carol talking about, people just really kind of complaining about LinkedIn. It's like, okay, great. I can look at companies. I can try to connect, but I just feel like I'm looking through a window that I can't reach through.
Yeah.
Or these are actually some powerful tools for regular Joe and Jane
job
searcher.
seekers. Yeah.
It really
point.
is.
Very
I
good
love
point,
that. I
right,
mean,
yeah.
those are really cool upgrades. I
Yeah.
love them. Yeah, exactly.
Right.
So you can use these new tools, and that's great. But and we probably need to step back and really review of what some basics on LinkedIn need to be accomplished for that job seeker. If you don't have the basics, these things really don't matter.
No, they don't matter that much. There are people who are on LinkedIn, and I hear complaints all the time. Well, I'm on LinkedIn. Why am I not being found? And I say to them, well, we have all these nice tools, but the number one item that you need to have on LinkedIn is a complete profile. So many people just kind of throw some stuff out there. They sign up for LinkedIn. They throw on a couple of jobs. They put 3 sentences in their about section, like, I want a job, please give me a job. Oh, no, that doesn't work real well.
Right.
So I can't go into detail here about what a complete profile, because that's its own little segment. I think I did one in the past, so I would recommend that you.
I think listening to any of the previous episodes, you're going to get a good picture of,
Right.
you need to do this, you need to do this.
that.
Well,
Yeah.
and LinkedIn tells you if you don't have an updated
Right.
profile.
Yeah, exactly. So just make sure that your profile is complete. That you have a good, solid, basic profile. Number 2 is to update your recommendations. If your last recommendation is from 2016, it's probably a little out of date. I would reach out to a couple of people and just ask if they could write, from your current job or your most recent job, and ask them if they would be willing to write a profile for you. And as LinkedIn really flourishes on reciprocity. So if you're asking somebody to write a recommendation for you, please write a recommendation for them too. And you can give people little prompts, because people are pretty tongue-tied when you ask them to write a recommendation. So give them a couple of prompts about that project you worked on, or that sales goal that you met, or whatever it is. Just give them a couple of prompts, and usually people can write you a pretty good recommendation then.
And think outside the box as to who you're asking for recommendations.
Yes.
So you can't go back to your current employer to do recommendations without maybe triggering their notion of, this person may be looking. So think of your colleagues or other supervisors in other areas, or it could be you did a project in a local church or nonprofit or something. Get those folks. So
Yeah, right. Or maybe one of your clients too, because if you've
a vendor you work with,
a
Sure.
vendor you work with, any of those folks could be potentially good recommendations. And number 3, and make sure that you are actually active on LinkedIn, and that you interact with your feed a couple of times a week at least, and don't just make one-word comments on folks. Just say, give a thoughtful response that actually adds to the conversation. I think some people are somewhat hesitant to do that, and sometimes somebody will post something, and generally, you want to give a positive response to that, but you could also give a response that says, this sounds good, and I have a question,
It sometimes if you aren't using LinkedIn enough, you start seeing the same people over and over and over.
Yeah.
I had an instance a couple of weeks ago to contact one of my former students who graduated years ago, and I reached out to her with a question about her company for someone else.
Yeah.
And suddenly now I'm seeing her posts.
Yes.
So it's that same notion of, if you engage with people, if you're out there, you're going to see more than just ads on your LinkedIn feed.
Exactly. Yeah. And you're actually helping, again, this is the reciprocity part of LinkedIn. You're actually helping them as well with whatever, first of all, with your comment, and then just making them more visible on LinkedIn. Because, in essence, and I think maybe we've learned this lesson, but I'm not so sure. In essence, if you are in the workforce today, you may have a job tomorrow, or you may not. And so just being engaged on LinkedIn, I think, is a big help for everybody. So, and then there are a couple of things to avoid. And actually, I'm going to put a third bullet point on there because it popped in my head and I think it's really important. Number one is the resume that you send should align pretty closely to your LinkedIn profile. I was working with a client recently, and there was something on their resume that was nowhere to be found on their LinkedIn profile. And I'm going, is there a reason this isn't on your LinkedIn profile? And they're like, oh, no, I just forgot to put it there. So, you don't want to put any questions. For recruiters coming and reviewing, has gotten your resume through your application. They're coming back, they're reviewing your LinkedIn profile, and things just don't seem to line up. That's probably not going to keep you at the top of your pile. So,
Well, and it actually could keep you from being in the pile if it's something that recruiter specifically needs to see
yeah.
in an application.
Yeah, exactly. So, and another thing, and this goes back to what's on your profile. The number one prime real estate on your profile when you're in job search is your headline. And for so many folks I see, it's their current or most recent previous job. So really take some time and think about what it is you want to tell a recruiter coming to your profile about why they should be interested in looking at the rest of your profile. So tell them, you can put your desired position or title, and then you want to have a tagline that says, I help people, or generating sales, or ensuring that your projects get done on time and under budget, or whatever it is. But give them.
So if you think in terms of, because I think this is hard to do.
Yeah.
Sharon, audience, believe me, my LinkedIn profile is not up to date because I've had the same headline for a couple of years now, and Sharon keeps telling me I have to update it, but I kind of like it. But,
Yeah, right.
So really then there's two questions
Yeah.
to ask yourself when you're writing your headline.
Yeah.
What do I want to do, and what value can I give to an employer?
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very good.
Yeah, right. And I just thought of a third one, and this is just more of a general statement and a caution. I've seen a lot of discussion recently in some of my career coaching groups about people who've gotten snagged up in various employment scams. And so I will say, just sort of very basically, if something doesn't look right, you just say no. I know when you're looking for a job, and maybe you've been looking for a couple of months and things don't seem to be moving forward, and somebody comes and says, hey, I've got this wonderful job for you. So you put in your application, and then they want, to get this job, you have to pay $500 for the training, or all kinds of stuff like that. And
Buy supplies.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Anything like that. And I want you to be really, really cautious about doing anything like that. And, and even, if you see something that looks like a scam, you can report it to LinkedIn. And I would say, I think, this company or this recruiter is not on the up and up, and LinkedIn sometimes will do something about it. Not always, but.
And there are local resources that somebody can use if they think that they're getting scammed.
Oh, sure.
They can contact the local Better Business Bureau or local Chamber of Commerce. They're going to have heard the complaints ahead of time. Your state attorney general's office, or even your county, your county offices,
prosecutor,
right, the local prosecutors. So be careful. Somebody wants your Social Security number before you have been hired.
Yeah.
They don't need your Social Security number at the first.
Yeah.
Yes, when you get your benefits, that may come into play, but not up front. So think in terms of critical identifying information about you and how you're going to send that out. Also, go to the company's main website.
Yes.
Make sure that website is really there and that job is actually posted.
Exactly. Yeah. That's all. That's all. It's just common sense, and it's sad that people get scammed so much. It's a big thing. You hear about scams just about for everybody.
Right. Well, and so listeners, we will have some of those tips added into our list of resources on scams, and we're actually going to be doing a podcast on scams here soon.
Okay, that's great.
So, okay, Sharon, we're ready for the next question after I've bombarded you with all these little side ideas here. But once you have those basics in place, your profile's up to date, what are the additional actions that you should be taking to increase your visibility and reach on LinkedIn?
So yeah, as I mentioned before, active participation is key, and there are a couple of other steps that you can take to increase your reach and your visibility on LinkedIn. Make it a point to touch base with some of your connections. Some people may not know you can actually download a list of all of your LinkedIn connections. There are instructions. If you go to LinkedIn Help, it's pretty clear how to do that. That's not a big task to do, and LinkedIn is pretty clear on how to do that. If you haven't checked that for a while, you may be surprised who's actually on that list, and you're like, "Oh, yeah." And you may be a little hesitant to reach out to some folks, but sometimes it's just good to say, "Hey, I haven't talked to you in 3 years, I'm just reaching out, seeing how you're doing. We've had this big upheaval in all of our lives. Just like to touch base, Can we hop on a phone call or a Zoom call for 15 minutes?" And if you do that regularly, with, maybe just 1 or 2 people a week, maybe 4 or 5 a month, that's 4 or 5 people you've actually re-engaged in your network. And, again, you want to be strategic. You're not just calling these folks to be nice, although that's certainly part of it, But, you're calling them to have a conversation about, "Hey, how have you been? Here's what's up with me. How can I help you?" All of that kind of thing. And you can do that easily in a 15 to 30-minute call,
And I love that idea of downloading your list of contacts, because there actually have been a few folks who have reached out to me that I was surprised we weren't already connected.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
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 Like, and that leads toward what you just talked about too, as part of that job search strategy.
Yeah.
So all these little pieces that maybe feel like they're moving all over the place, but if you're giving yourself some grace to contact people you haven't talked to in 2 or 3 years, you never know where that's going to lead. But what have you lost other than just another human connection?
Yeah. Right.
And reconnecting with someone that you haven't talked to for a while. So
Yeah.
what?
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's a good thing, because we always, you hear out in the news nowadays, loneliness is our biggest problem. Well, don't be lonely, connect.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and I love that thing that you also said was, this is for the good of both parties.
Yeah.
And LinkedIn is just like networking. It's reciprocal.
Yeah.
You're closing the loops, keep closing the loops. And you're not just connecting with them to tell them you're looking for a job. You're connecting with them because they are an important part of your career path.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, and then the last item I recommend, and I've talked about this in previous podcasts on LinkedIn, remember that there are literally probably hundreds of thousands of groups on LinkedIn, but there are a couple that you really can use to your advantage. First of all, your college or university alumni group, and there are usually multiple groups for any college or university that you've attended. Now, some of them have requirements that you have to pay your alumni dues. Some of them are just kind of open source. All you have to have is that college or university listed under education in your profile, and you can join that group. So those are really good. And then you have this huge resource. Hey, I'm a fellow alum. Anybody have any recommendations for looking for jobs in Chicago?
Right.
Somebody in Chicago will chime in. Well, I'm in Chicago and I work for, and there you go.
Right.
So that's a great resource. The other resources are, in terms of groups, are companies. Many big companies have alumni associations people who actually worked at those companies in the past. And, you can say, well, maybe they're all kind of grumpy about not working there, but that's not necessarily the case. So I would investigate some of those groups and just see what's out there, and maybe companies that you worked for in the past, and you might want to reconnect with some of those folks. And then finally, and I think this is really critical too, what is your industry and what groups are part of your industry? So, for instance, my basic industry, if you want to say that, is learning, talent development, instructional design, all of those things. So my groups are the local and national chapters of the Association for Talent Development. I also look at the Society for Human Resources groups and am a member of a couple of those. So just think, what are your groups? Because those are the folks who are already working, for the most part, in your industry. Sometimes they'll post jobs, in that group that you can look. And you can easily there, I think, and without, being too overly cautious, can say, hey, I'm thinking about my next step career-wise, looking for advice from anybody who's currently doing this, looking to make connections in this company because I think that might be a good place to work. You can ask all kinds of questions in those groups, and usually you'll get a pretty good response. So,
and to find those groups, it's really just putting key words into the search function.
Yeah, and selecting groups.
And select groups,
yeah,
right.
Mm-hmm. Now, obviously, there's a difference between a group that has 50 members and a group that has 5,000.
Right.
Yeah, so, if the group has 50 members, they may not have a whole lot of traction. But those big groups, if you're eligible to join, you don't have to join all of them. Again, this is part of your job search strategy. You can join groups that are really industry specific to your industry and get a lot of good advice and referrals and probably even some ideas for jobs. I know our local Central Ohio ATD, Association for Talent Development chapter, regularly posts learning development jobs and instructional design jobs in the Columbus area. I see those, probably 1 or 2 a month that people are looking. And if you're a member of that group, they already know who you are.
Right.
And that's a real in to a...
And so then the other part of that is, like as you mentioned, say you live in Columbus, you're looking for a job in Chicago.
Yeah.
You find the companion groups there.
Yeah.
Start trying to make connections there. Local chambers of commerce,
yeah.
in those, in either in your hometown or where it is you'd like to move to, and professional associations.
Yes, right.
If you're really looking at staying in the same industry type of position you have, you probably belong to a professional association. Make sure you're connected in their LinkedIn, and then if they have local chapters, pages to do that.
Yeah, exactly. So that's all really helpful. So,
Well, related to changes on LinkedIn and social media, we can't go a day without talking about the buzz of the developments around AI, like ChatGPT, and similar apps too. What have you seen about how this might affect job search in general and LinkedIn in particular?
Yes, well, I'm learning on a pretty steep learning curve, just like everybody else in this regard. What I do know is that LinkedIn is in the process of rolling out some AI-assisted communication tools, such as drafting a message to a recruiter who's posted a job. And currently, this feature is only available on LinkedIn to paid subscribers, but I'm imagining at some point they may roll that out to other folks as well. And LinkedIn already uses AI tools to support job searching based on feedback from a generated search. So if you get job recommendations, you've set up your job search alerts, and you get recommendations like, why is LinkedIn doing this? You can tell LinkedIn right now, nope, this is just not working. This is not a good thing. So this allows the algorithm to further refine and only really send you jobs that are really a good fit for you. So and I do have a word of caution because I've been, really trying to pay attention to this as much as I can because I know it is going to impact how we work and how we apply for jobs and everything. So what I've seen so far about ChatGPT and similar applications, Microsoft Bing has an application that's similar. They can be really helpful for research and idea generation and using them. But on the other hand, if you're using them to generate actual content like write me a resume or something like that, and you put parts of your current resume into that database, that becomes part of the database, and you've lost every shred of privacy that you have because anybody else can use that. Even if it's not really identifiable material, now somebody else has access to it, and they can just pick it right up and use it.
You're writing everybody else's resume is basically what's happening.
Yeah, right. And I find this really interesting because for quite a while on LinkedIn, there was a box that you could check or uncheck that said, you can use my profile in Microsoft Word Resume Writer. They took that out, and I was like really happy. But now we have a version of that back if you're not careful.
Right.
You really do have to be careful. So,
and two, I absolutely be careful because you do not want your material information and what you've worked to do on your resume on everybody else's resume. But the other part of that too is if you're asking the AI bot to help you write your resume, realize that when you go into an interview with an employer and they start asking you questions, you can't look at them and say, oh, well, I didn't write that. GPT did. Well, that's not going to help.
Yeah,
that's going to make an unsuccessful interview. You want to be able to understand what's in your resume because you've written it, you know what it means, and you can defend it.
Yes, exactly. And I've seen many comments about how ChatGPT and the bots have what they call MSO, make stuff up syndrome. So really, you don't want to. I mean, I think it is a really good tool for research. You can ask ChatGPT to generate some interview questions for you based off of a job search. That's a good thing. Although I think they're still kind of in the rote phase, but I think they'll get better at that too. Mm-hmm. But you just have to be really cautious about what you put out there. Right. That's your content.
Great.
So yeah.
Okay, so Sharon, we've gone through all of these major bits and pieces of what's going on LinkedIn, and we always ask our guests for any last words of advice.
Yes, always happy to give last words of advice here. So, staying on top of developments in job search can be really challenging. It's every day there's something new or it seems like, and you're like, this is a really steep hill to climb. But don't hesitate to ask for help. There's a lot of help out there. LinkedIn is a good place to ask for help, actually. Mm-hmm. You can ask for help. I see folks posting that are pretty much doing things right. And they're somewhere in my broader LinkedIn circle. And I see somebody make a comment, because they've asked for help. They say, I've put out like 25 applications over the last month. They all seem like really good fits. I don't seem to be getting any traction. Can somebody help me out here? And, people will be very generous. I've seen people say, hey, you need to talk to so-and-so, or, well, I looked at your resume and, I'm not quite sure that you've hit your target like you think you're hitting your target. And they'll give so LinkedIn is a great place. And people like me give at least limited amounts of completely free advice. So I think we put my
we'll have
LinkedIn.
We'll have your contact information
out
sure,
there.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, and I'm always happy to give people a limited amount of free advice. That's just paying it forward. So, and again, the more active you are on LinkedIn, the more visible you are, and finding a job is just really hard. We all know that. And but using the tools that are available to you on LinkedIn in a strategic fashion will help you move forward to find that next opportunity.
Right.
So,
and also, just to add in, there are a lot of places to go to get help,
yep.
Both free and for a cost. And we'll have those on our resources sheet. One other thing that we really didn't talk about in LinkedIn, this is a peripheral issue, but the LinkedIn Learning session, if you're looking at trying to update a few skills that you need to really hammer into that resume, LinkedIn Learning is the perfect place. And if you're in Columbus, you can do that for free through the Columbus Library.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah.
Super. Well, thanks again, Sharon, our LinkedIn coach and local expert, assisting job seekers throughout Central Ohio. Listeners, thank you for joining us. Don't forget to check out our show notes in the podcast, as well as on the website for contact information. As we mentioned, we'll have a list of resources that we talked about today. And you can find all of this at lookingforwardourway.com. We are looking forward to hearing your feedback on this and any of our podcast episodes.